We return focusing on taxi violence tonight. Several people have been killed, allegedly due to conflict over routes in Soweto. That's since January this year. And the Gauteng MEC for Transport, Ismail Vadi, has now made good on his promise to close down the routes that caused that dispute from today for 3 months. That means that government is effectively removing thousands of taxis from these routes. The warring associations are the Nancefield Dube West Taxi Association, Nanduwe for short, and the Witwatersrand Taxi Association, WATA for short. Now they have an umbrella body. We're joined by the spokesperson for the National Taxi Alliance, Theo Malele. Thank you for being with us.
Good evening, and thank you for having me.
So you, as well as these associations, are hoping that the MEC will back down, revoke this decision?
Well, not really. I think that's rather too harsh to say he would back down, because I think he's acting on, in the interest of, society. Obviously, as a political head, he cannot just, sit back whilst, people are losing their lives, and there is this, spate of violence taking place within our operations.
Okay, so the closures are okay, because we were hearing that there was this last-minute agreement, so you hope that that'll lead to some change?
Not certainly that they are okay. Yes, there has been negotiations. In actual fact, the National Taxi Alliance leadership, through its visionary and decisiveness, actually came into the fore and brought these two parties together. And ever since that happened, the spate of violence had actually subsided, if you like. And what then happened is that we actually wanted to to get to the bottom of the problem, which was to look at the operating licenses themselves, because apparently these two associations are registered to be, utilizing the same routes. So we then had to bring in experts in a form of the directorate, in the licensing and monitoring, and the provincial regulatory entity, who are the issuers of, operating licenses, to come and actually give us an interpretation of what this means, in terms of the operating license. So once we were aware of what the real problem was, we then sat with both associations and tried to come up with mechanisms to resolve, this impasse between these two, associations. It was quite a laborious exercise, if you like, for us to reach to where we got to up until late last night. So what we then came up with was a new operational plan. Yes, indeed, in 2017 there was also an agreement that was reached, but that agreement was then broken again by these two associations. And obviously a riot act was read to these two associations by the leadership of the National Taxi Alliance. So then in essence what they then said was that there would be a cessation of hostilities at all costs, and what they will also do is to come up with a committee comprising of 4 members from each association that will look into the operational issues on a daily basis, and they in return will report back to us, so that we can actually monitor progress, so that as and when there are problems, we're able to step in and try and resolve them.
But so this was at the 11th hour. The big question is, why does it take a threat, a full closure of ranks across Soweto, to get 2 warring factions to basically agree to stop the killing?
Well, not necessarily at the 11th hour. It is just that...
It was last night.
No, it was only last night, but in actual fact, it could have happened much earlier on. It's just a pity that one of the directorates was not available for us to engage with them, because the interpretation of this operating license was very key for us to find a solution to the problem.
But surely they could agree not to kill people, to cease hostilities before that.
Well,
we're talking about people's lives.
I do concede that indeed the taxi industry is actually, violence has become endemic within the taxi industry. I do concede. that is not the only way of resolving our differences, which is why earlier on I impressed upon you that a riot act was read to these people, that there are mechanisms that needs to be utilized for people to resolve their differences, which is also why both parties agreed that there be a committee that will look at the operational aspects on a daily basis, and also that both associations executives will meet once a week.
And I appreciate that you are admitting that violence is endemic, that there is a problem here. I think it's something that South Africans understand. People are dying over taxi routes. I only have you in front of me. You said that the National Taxi Alliance read the Riot Act, but again, this is in the last few weeks. People have been dying since January, and there's an overall problem. Why are you only now getting tough?
Look, very well. Look, if in 2016, on the 29th of July, the taxi industry's collective leadership and the Department of Transport and the Premier of Gauteng, David Makhura, signed a declaration of intent wherein all parties had agreed to work together to resolve the challenges facing the taxi industry, one of which, as a sore thumb, was this of the taxi violence. It is just that the MEC of Transport actually dragged his feet in actually implementing those resolutions that were taken by the collective leadership of the taxi industry. Had he done that, we wouldn't be where we are today.
So sorry, what could the MEC have done to stop this?
Basically, it's to actually make sure that he also signs a memorandum of understanding with us. There was a task team that was set up of the taxi industry that worked with government officials, for which I was part thereof. So what we then looked at were the resolutions and how to implement these resolutions. All that work was actually done on how this should go ahead, but it's just a pity that even the very sittings we were not coming through in a proper sequence. What I'm alluding here is that some of the issues that was, some of the days that were agreed upon for meetings were actually missed, and some of the issues that were supposed to have done, the MEC, took forever to can actually act on this one.
All right, unfortunately we have to leave it there, but we'll continue to follow how this plays out. For now, those taxis are being taken off the road. Thank you for your time this evening. From the National Taxi Alliance, Theo, Malele.